How's it going, y'all? Welcome back to this brand workshop that I'm working through. I just want to start by saying my name is Jesse Lynch. I run a real estate team called To the Twin Cities. We primarily help people relocate to the Twin Cities. This channel is more a meditation for me, but it's also more, it exists not for real estate clients or people trying to move. It's more for real estate agents and or business owners who are basically just trying to brainstorm along with me. That's a weird way of putting it, but brainstorming along with me as I work through some of the core structure of a brand and the most important aspects of a brand. And I also will continue to talk through changes that I make and adjustments that I think maybe the brand needs. And the new brand is basically, it's my more or less a personal brand, my name on it being Jesse Lynch. And then I've decided, rather than kind of starting a channel around this one video series, I'm going to start a video series within that brand, and it's going to be called Make Minnesota. And kind of the foundational aspect of that idea is sort of diving with and connecting the audience with the people, the places, the things, the drives, the stuff that makes Minnesota awesome. So that's kind of why I make Minnesota. So the people who make Minnesota, right? Things like that. The drives that make Minnesota, the road trips that make Minnesota, etc. And I'm trying to create it in sort of like an artistic way, and part of that is so that I can just get to make art, and that's fun for me, right? So if I can figure out a way to overlap the things that I find interesting, that sort of style of video, but also talking to people who are making things that are exceptional and all that. So yeah, if you've watched all of these so far, good on you. I mean, I think very few people will, and that's literally so okay with me at this point. This channel, there was a chance that this channel would just kind of, I'd stop putting anything out on it because I wasn't super interested in the type of content that I had been making. It just wasn't the right kind of package for what I wanted to do for this kind of channel. And more than anything, making video content that is like helping other realtors or business owners, what had occurred to me was it wasn't really the main thing that I should be focusing on. There are way more things that I should do within my business, and I should spend my time working on those things within my business to grow that will be a better return on my time than the videos that I was making on this channel. And part of it was because I didn't quite know how I wanted my brand to live and exist, and like how I wanted to grow my team, which brings me to this, which is that I really don't care what real estate brokerage you're at. I don't even care if you're a real estate agent. If you are a real estate agent, I almost certainly don't want you to be on my team. There's a very select type of person who I want to have hop on the team. And there's just honestly very few people who want to operate that way. And that's okay with me. So there's so much more growing that I have to do for the team before I have any intention on just growing volume of agents. And I don't know if I ever will. We are a small but mighty team, and I really like that. It actually gives me more freedom, I think. And that's what I want in life. I want freedom to do the cool shit that I want to do. And so don't care about that. I also know that these videos they're not optimized. They're not even necessarily good videos for a lot of people. Caleb Ralston, a dude I pay attention to a fair bit in the marketing world, he just defines a good video or a good piece of content as something that's helpful. So I think this can be helpful to some people. I think it will be helpful to me in the future. And I think if you are here now when I'm putting this out, very cool. And I think it will just be potentially interesting to follow along with. That said, I'm really putting this here so that it's here in a year or two. As that other brand begins or continues to develop, this channel will be here sort of showing my path and having me reflect on the previous week as I was getting into that brand. And actually that brand and how it relates with my other brand as well. But so that's what this is for. This is like a documentation of the work. And I think there's a possibility that I find it very helpful to come back to, or there will be people who see the brand that I'm making, right? Let's call it Make Minnesota, right? There will be people who see that series and they ultimately come back to these really early videos where it's just me like digging the ditch of that brand and really just kind of like grinding through the hard parts to get to a full complete concept of this brand and this video series and all that. So it's been very fun so far. There's been a few videos I made since the last one. I made the last episode. I had already made the video with the City Homes owner, Remick, and we also did a home tour video. And I still don't have that back yet. Waiting on my editor, to be honest, to get that to me. Shout out to him, but waiting on it. And so I'm not sure how that turned out, and I don't have it to quite reflect on yet, but I will. When I have it, I will. And I've thought more about the video and the process of that video, and it's very satisfying. And now the hard part for me is having the time to carve out to designate to the channel to sort of schedule videos with these folks. So there's sort of the production side of the videos that I have to make sure I'm carving time out for, which isn't that crazy. It's just a new habit that I have to get into, and I will, so I'm not sweating it. But I have found other videos to make. Not every single video will be an interview, will specifically have somebody else in it. Oscar's here, by the way. He's scratching the carpet or the rug, and I'm not sure why. But where was I? I'm not sure. Not every video will have somebody else in it, and there's a big reason for that, which is that I have found that having to rely on even one other person to schedule with is enough friction to slow a channel down. So while I do intend to have those as a series, I also need to figure out how can I make one video a week, or let's say 3 videos a month, that are not these feature style videos, that are more solo endeavors. So there are ideas that I have. There's one that I just did, and there are things that I want to do. So I'll talk through that. The one that I just did was like a motorcycle trip, kind of an all-day motorcycle trip through the Twin Cities, and I was also looking at what's called the Artisan Home Tour, which are some of the nicest homes in Minnesota, and they're like new build typically. They also have some renovations that are like really impressive renovations that you can look at. I was only looking at the new build single family homes because frankly that's all I had time for in a day. It's like noon to 6 is all they're open, so 6 hours looking at houses and riding, and it was raining. It was pretty interesting. It's one of those things where I got the idea in my head of like the day before. I was like, oh yeah, cool, I'm gonna do that. That'd be sweet. That'd be a nice area, nice kind of country to drive through, because most of them are kind of on the outskirts of the metro. And I thought, yeah, that sounds cool. That'd be like a fun day. And I looked at the weather. I said, oh, let me check the weather. Looked at the weather. It was some rain, like chance of rain. And so I looked at kind of specifically the times. It said rain, possibility of rain would start at like 7 p.m. or something. So I thought, okay, great. And it was only like 40% chance. I thought, okay, that's awesome. I should be able to get this done and get home by about 7. If I get a little bit of rain, no big deal. Fast forward to the day of, it was like I had woken up nice and early to kind of get everything ready, which is another thing that I kind of got to think about. I'm going to actually take that note real quick. Okay. So I had woken up all nice and early. It was like 8 a.m. I got ready, and I kind of had spent a little bit of the morning like hanging out, filming a few things kind of at my house just to get the context of the video going. And again, I have some thoughts on that, some things that I learned. But then at like 10 a.m., I was going to leave around 10 so that I could stop in downtown. I had an hour-long ride on the motorcycle to get to the first house because it was all the way across the metro in Medina, which is an hour across the metro, especially if you're not using highways, which I was not using highways because I prefer not to ride on highways, frankly. I would much rather take a longer ride not on a highway, on a motorcycle specifically. I drive my car on the highway all the freaking time, but I'm so much more comfortable, even if it's on like a state highway or even if the speed limit's 60 miles an hour, but there's way less traffic. I just find it so much more comfortable. So I thought, cool, I'm gonna leave at 10. 10 rolls around. I'm still not quite ready, but it starts to rain. And I was like, oh, okay. Did not see this coming. But I thought, well, maybe I can film a little bit in the garage and just get a little bit of stuff out of the way that will, I don't know, make the rest of the day a little bit easier. And I'll wait out some of the rain. So I did. I waited out some of the rain. But then by the time it was done, it kind of like rained lightly for about an hour. By the time it was about done, it was really in a spot where I had to leave to get to that house at noon. But I knew that I wanted to stop in downtown because my route kind of took me through downtown. And I really thought, well, that's like one of the spots that I want to have in the video, so, I'll do it. So anyway, I left, set off for the day, kind of knew there was a chance that I was going to get rained on. The radar was definitely showing some possibility of that. And, it's the kind of the risk you take. You're okay, well, let's see. It's not the end of the world if I get rained on. It's just like a much less comfortable ride, I had a good jacket, a waxed cotton jacket, so it was very resistant to rain. Like I didn't feel like drenched or anything like that. But like I did just have like denim jeans on, and those definitely got wet, So I get to downtown Minneapolis, pretty nice weather at that point. Pretty excited about that. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm kind of thinking like, all right, I just had to get to the west of all of this stuff, and then I'm good. And I get to the first house. Cool, everything's going good. One of the things that the guy said, I had my Sony ZV-10, EV-Z10. I don't know. It's not the nicest camera that I have by a long shot. The one I'm shooting this on is considerably nicer, much more professional, but still not even. Not Hollywood, not Netflix professional, just like a nicer camera. And I'm like, I have it in my hand, and right at the door of the first one, the guy goes, hey, just so you know, they don't want anybody with like a nice camera to be taking pictures or videos inside. And I thought, oh, shoot. Well, that's my whole plan. That was my plan today. But obviously, I have an iPhone, and I'm like, can I use my phone? Can I take stuff? And he's like, oh yeah, that's no problem. I'm like, all right, well, the phone takes pretty nice stuff these days, so not as good, but tolerable. So I decided, all right, well, that settles that. I'm just on my phone today. And I don't think that it was a bad thing at all, to be honest. I think it probably sped up my workflow a little bit and made me feel a little bit less awkward anyway, being in a house with 20 to 30 people at a time and looking much more casual because I had a phone. That said, still was one guy who was sometimes wet because I was on a motorcycle and it was raining. And I look how I look, and I felt a little funny at times. But not because I was in those houses and I'm not comfortable in those houses, but because of the scene in the house. It just it's a little strange sometimes. But I get to the first house. He tells me I have to use my phone. I say, okay, sick, awesome. And so I get done with that house. While I'm at that house, it starts raining. So, okay, in my head, I'm just like, well, all right, it just is what it is. It's not the worst sort of struggle to have in a video, right? There's something about well, this is not awesome, but hey, here I am. I said I was going to make this video, and I'm making this video. I don't mind having that element in my videos. The kind of there's a little piece of me that thinks gritting your teeth through difficulty in a video, in video form, in content form in general, and showing the difficulty, there's a little bit of that it shows that like your word is bond and that you're not afraid of, hard work, you're not afraid of adversity, and you just like get through it. So, while I didn't say that in the video, I wasn't being like, when adversity happens, you just have, obviously I didn't say anything like that. I just did it, right? And I just kind of grit my teeth and kept on moving. So then throughout the day, I think there were probably 3 rides out of maybe 7 or 8 kind of like bops from house to house. There are 3 rides with like pretty good rain. And my motorcycle has literally no windshield or anything like that. It's pretty bare. And it's fine. I had a helmet on, obviously, because I'm not a psycho, and I care about my longevity. But it still was interesting. I haven't ridden a motorcycle in the rain in actually quite some time, because I've only ridden motorcycles for the last 10 plus years, if not more than that, probably more than that. I've only ridden it purely as leisure, with like very little like I need to get to this place, very little of that at all. And so that like was a learning experience. But the cool thing was that I felt so comfortable on the motorcycle, even with it raining, and it just tells me that it's a good bike. I'm really glad I got that bike, and it's so easy, right? I don't know if I've even talked about that. What type of bike? It's a Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 or INT 650 in the States, and it is such an affordable motorcycle. It's new. Yeah, it's new to me. It's new. It's new. It's 2024, even though it's 2025. But you can't get 2025s in the U.S. So it's a 0 mileage motorcycle. When I got it, or like 2 miles on it. So it's pretty sweet. And just like how confident I felt on it was really reassuring. Like, okay, cool. I'm going to be able to use this as kind of a character in these videos, and I think it'll be pretty cool. There's a ton of B-roll footage with me on the motorcycle that I think will be interesting to look at, right? And interesting to, again, sort of even like a POV shot of me on a motorcycle, with like where you can just see my hands and the motorcycle on the road. Like, to me, that's almost a character. That's like a package, right? I've actually thought about, I'm very curious. I'm curious what you think. Is there any world where I make this podcast while on that? I don't know. Could be cool. I think it'd be cool. But there's part of me that thinks somebody just walked into the office, but I'm not sure. So the biggest thing about all that to me is that can I actually concentrate for long enough on a motorcycle, concentrate on the riding and what I'm talking about, or would I need to, like, would it be reasonably enjoyable if my talking kind of went in and out when I was riding a motorcycle, but I still just had like the package of, like the frame of the video is that I'm on a motorcycle, and so there's kind of like a scenic element to it as well. I don't know. I think that would be the only reason that I would do that is because it would be fun for me. I don't think that it's like a compelling package as it pertains to this channel, right? I think it's like a bit odd, it doesn't really like overlap. It doesn't necessarily make sense. It's not like an appropriate package for the content, but it could be fun. Could be a good way to get, what do they say? Get 2 birds stoned at once, and be able to have this conversation and work through these things in my mind while also getting to enjoy a motorcycle ride. But would it also spoil the motorcycle ride? These are the questions I ask myself. So anyway, got to all the houses that I wanted to, that were on my list, and filmed them all. Again, waiting on that edit, but it was a fun day, and it was interesting to ride in the rain. I didn't get home probably until 7 or so, just because the last one was also kind of still far away from home. And yeah, just a good day, like had it been sunny and beautiful weather, would have been better. without a doubt. Had I been able to use my other camera, probably would have been better too. Would have felt a little bit more satisfying and like I was getting, slightly better shots. But I had to just go, well, this is what it is, right? So that said, the quality of video to me is a huge, huge part of what I want to have on that channel. So while I do think it was fun to get that and to be able to like get into that world, and kind of like have this like challenge in the shape of a video, I think it was just like when I come back and when I look at that, I think that one of like kind of the pillars of what's important to me about the channel is quality and making things, cinematic and feel like small films. That I think that's kind of gone from that video. So what do you do? But maybe not everything has to feel like that. That's again kind of a thought that I'm having is there a certain type of, is the Making Minnesota, for example, does that have to be, is that what is of such high quality? Or does all of it have to feel, at least like professional YouTube camera, like filmmaker YouTube quality, like kind of at least? I don't know. Those are things that I'm kind of throwing around, and that's kind of what we're talking through here. But I tend to think that yes, I need to like aim for that. I also, again, want to aim for things that I can do alone. But what I realized while I was filming that is that I need way more time. So whatever amount of time I think a video might take, I need to double it. So that video, more or less, I had 6 hours, I guess, from maybe we'll call it 7, because I didn't have to be, I was done at the last, so the last hour of driving that I had, that doesn't count. That's just the drive home after being done. But I had 7 hours. I think I realistically needed like 12. So the hard part about that is that the showings were only open for 6 hours. But probably to do it properly, I should have been out way earlier, like when the sun was up. And I should have been shooting B-roll sort of between the houses. So some of that is just like the B-roll of showing me riding. So in that situation, it would be like B-roll of the motorcycle going down the road, right? And I shot B-roll for all of them, and that was cool. But interesting, I'm getting a temperature warning on this camera, which I never get. 1 second, let me see if I can. Yeah, this camera shouldn't have a temperature warning, so we'll see. But I did have B-roll kind of on the motorcycle, but I basically got no B-roll that was from the road or like me pulling up to places that are pretty important in my opinion to help tell a story and to provide variety. I had sort of a POV style. It's called like a neck mount actually. Pretty cool if you're ever looking for it. It's called by Telesin, Telesin. And it kind of like clips in here and it sits right here, and it's very good sort of general human POV, and especially when you're motorcycle or bicycle and you kind of like want to show your hands doing that, pretty cool. And then I have a 360 camera that is a DJI 360 camera, Osmo 360 or something like that. This camera is also a DJI. I think I have them both here. They're pretty interesting. So DJI, both of these, and this is the 360 camera. You can see it has lenses on both sides. This is the action camera. They shoot in D-Log, so they can produce a log style video, which if you're not into cameras, all that means is that it takes kind of the color information from a video. If you think about like your iPhone, most people, you're like, okay, that's a kind of a complete image. You can add a filter to give it style, but it's already got saturation and contrast, and it kind of looks like a done image, right? More or less. The D-Log, it is not done. You have to process it, but by saturating or by desaturating it and removing contrast, you can play with it a lot more. You can alter it a lot more. So a really good example would be when it comes to the removal of the contrast, is that you would have, let's say you're in an area where there's a really shadowy part and a really, really bright part. by removing the contrast, it brings those things closer together. So then when you go to add contrast, you can choose how you add contrast, if that makes sense. You can choose to like keep the shadows lifted up, pulled up, and then create contrast at kind of like this more where it's like pinched between the shadows and the highlights, rather than just normal contrast is just shadows are darker, highlights are lighter. So anyway, it gives you more room to play, right? And more room to make a final image that looks really sharp. So that's kind of the whole idea there. And by those having D-Log, it looks pretty dang good. Not as good as like this camera and things like that, but it does look pretty darn good. So it's been interesting to be working on that. Been fun to be working with those tools and be able to kind of dive into how to make the most out of those. Because interestingly, on my other channel, as I may have said before, my main to this Twin Cities channel has been completely, probably 90% of the videos that are me being out and about, they were shot on a GoPro. And GoPro just like doesn't look that good, frankly. Both Insta360 and these new DJI action cams are just, the image quality is so much better. So I've gone I went 5 years using just GoPro, and I've had a ton of closings. I've helped a ton of clients with that. And so the idea that the gear is super, super important is just not the truth. If you're providing value, that's super, super important, right? If you're providing things that are helpful, your audience will appreciate you so much more, which is something that I'm trying to get to understand about the new brand, the new channel, is like, how is that helpful, right? How do I make that as helpful as possible? And what I'm realizing is it's helpful for a certain type of person, a person interested in certain things, which is like that high-end, like quality and craftsmanship, and like when you see something, you go, man, that thing is so nice, right? It's for people who want to be exposed to more of that, and for one, want to understand it and want to like lift up their sort of taste and their understanding of those things. So partly I imagine somebody who's kind of new to having the money to spend on some of the finer things in life, and they're like, interesting, like what's even out there, like with these artisan homes. I guarantee there are a ton of people, even real estate agents, who have never really seen like what a $3 million house in Minnesota is like. They've never stepped foot in something that feels quite like that, because it can be overwhelming if you're totally unfamiliar with it. So there's kind of making the introduction, and we've talked a bit about that on this channel, of trying to make it like let me show you, this is my friend. In that case, this is my friend Rebecca, and she owns City Homes. And making the introduction to the people who make Minnesota awesome, making an introduction to the places that make Minnesota awesome, making an introduction to, the rides, the roads, the things, just like the coolest stuff, basically. And that's basically all comes down to my taste, right? So what's cool for my standard might not be cool to other people, but I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be fun, and so far it has been. And so let me get back to the idea of like how long it'll take to make a video. Some of these videos, I think I need to just like allow myself a full day, right? I think I need a full day, and some videos I think I need to give myself 2 days, maybe 3 for certain videos. They might be longer videos if I'm doing that. But it depends on if I'm trying to cover a lot of ground physically, then I might just need more time to get those things done. I'm also, if I'm doing it solo especially, for my other channel, for the main channel to the Twin Cities, that one, I started doing some other videos, and I'm currently working with 2 different videographers who I kind of know from the music world. I kind of put a line out saying like, hey, are there any photographers and videographers interested in some work? eventually it kind of came around to these folks, one of whom actually, he didn't even see that. I specifically reached out to him because he was kind of like the, let's say, the avatar of who I was thinking about. He was from the music world. He's very talented. I know he has a really wonderful eye and is really good at like achieving just beautiful, crispy footage. Sorry for all the noise. I have the window open in this office room because I'm pretty sure the boilers are on, and also we still have like ACs in the window because it's kind of a strange time of year, but it is cooking in here. So yeah, there's noise. Sorry about it. So this one dude, Randy, he was somebody who I actually solicited. I said, hey, you interested in this? And he said, yes. So we shot, let's see, we didn't shoot yesterday. We shot the day before and the day before that. Basically Thursday and Friday, we shot together. And it was super cool. It was a really great video day. And some of that was because I had a really good video idea and I had it planned out really well. We're going to go here, 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 right? And we're going to just make something cool kind of along the way. And he also had a little bit of Wednesday night and a little bit of Sunday to capture some more B-roll in the area. So the part of the reason that I thought somebody like Randy would be good was that he tours with bands. He's also a musician, but his main thing is video and photo. And he tours with bands. And if you're touring with a band and you're taking photos, you have to just be ready. Right? And you have to be like, I can just walk around with my camera and I can get something awesome on it. I don't need to set up a tripod with, whatever they call it. I don't know. A really good panning capability. I literally don't even know what you call that. But there's like a sort of a run and gunness to it while still being able to actually create something that's like quite cinematic and very compelling. Which is why I hit him up. And it was very fun. We worked on a video that was Minneapolis versus St. Paul. And no, not Minneapolis. We worked on a video that was, if you had 48 hours in the Twin Cities to truly experience it, here's what I would do, basically. So that felt very successful by the end of it. Before that, kind of the weekend before that, and then the weekend even before that, I'd done another video with a dude named Christian. I admittedly, Christian, if you're watching this, I love you. You did a very good job. Admittedly, I was less confident in Christian's ability because he's newer to videography and he has less of like a body of work of stuff that shows me that he could pull off what I was trying to do. But I see that he has enough of like a vision and a good enough eye that he could successfully pull off what I was looking for. So I gave him a shot, and I will say the biggest kind of like pain in the butt about it was entirely my fault. It was not being prepared enough. So, and some of it was, I thought I was prepared, but it was partly my mind was not in the right space to take the information that I had written down and actually like say sentences that made sense. So I had information to use and to reference, but I had to like there on the spot decide how I wanted it to work within the overall flow of the video. And some of that had to do with the fact that the way we were shooting the video, this is probably the most difficult part of the video, but the way that we were shooting the video, it was out of order in terms of the video. We started in St. Paul and we worked our way west. And what that then meant is that the context of those clips within the video were just all over the place. And I don't script things, so it's not like I just had to go, what am I saying here? Great, let me just learn that and it's all good. I like to know I like to know the context of what I'm talking about, not just memorize a script, and be able to kind of like riff and make it feel as natural as possible. Like how I'm talking to you right now is truly natural, at least as natural as I can possibly be talking to a camera. Because like it's going to be a little bit different talking to a camera, but if I had a script, I can't be this natural. And I would say that just about anybody who has a script who thinks they can be as natural, they're wrong. They don't know what actually natural looks like. They don't know what themselves natural on camera really looks like and really feels like. I know people personally. It is getting hot in here. My camera actually overheated, but it could have been because it's plugged in, whatever. Doesn't matter. I know people personally who tend to use like teleprompter or they're reading notes. And I also know of YouTubers who say that that's what they do. And I would say all of them, even some bigger YouTubers that say that they do, I can tell that they're teleprompting. And I can tell that they're reading. And while maybe that's okay, you know, people on the news are teleprompting. You don't slight them for that. But there still is just, I want things to come across as extremely organic as possible. Again, you're making a video and structuring it and putting it together for somebody to watch. That's not perfectly organic, right? There still is like something fake about that, you know, something manufactured, right? But I still want things to feel as natural as they possibly can be. So anyway, the working that way, working not just kind of out of order, but like completely out of order in the flow of the video, I'm realizing now that like it's pretty damn important to me to work in a chronological way, because I can remember what I said earlier, but I can't remember what I intend to say in the future, if that makes sense. And I can't remember what I said and intended to say, right? If I say I'm somewhere in St. Paul and I say the thing, I'm trying to get a point across the point of like the difficulty of that is I didn't want to just have everything say like in St. Paul it's like this and then cut to and in Minneapolis it's like this. I wanted to bop back and forth between starting with Minneapolis and using St. Paul as a counterpoint, starting in St. Paul, using Minneapolis as a counterpoint. So we had to go to those spots and I had to say, whereas in St. Paul, blah, 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 blah. Which is honestly so weird. When you haven't said the other thing yet and you're saying something as a counterpoint, I've never really had to make something like that. And lesson learned. I guess that's all I'll say. Lesson learned. And I will say that makes something like a Minneapolis versus St. Paul video difficult, because the goal was to be in a place that represented the thing I was talking about all the time. So I can't, either I have to do it out of order, or if I'm doing it consecutively in like a shooting chronologically for how it will actually show up in the video, I'm driving like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it would take, I don't know, 3 or 4 times longer probably. So anyway, that was a big lesson learned in that one. And again, Christian did a really good job. So it was basically entirely on me for that. And we're going to reshoot stuff anyway because of a mic problem. Again, my fault. You'd think I was the one who hadn't shot many videos. I've shot a ton of videos. I just hadn't shot one quite like that. So yeah, lesson learned. Understand how you work and how you shoot, and shoot that way, or understand how you script if you can script and like make that move really, really effortlessly, then that would be fine too. But yeah, that I don't script, and so even though I thought I had these really robust notes, it became really hard to keep track of. So yeah, so then that said, that was all for those other 2 videos, but it was kind of revealing and a really good learning for me in working on these other videos with somebody else, specifically somebody who wasn't Paul, because I've made a lot of videos with Paul, and I gave Paul his flowers, and I will continue to give Paul his flowers. After shooting with other people, I told Paul, like, it's tough shooting without you, because we now speak the same language, and there's been this learning curve of him learning how I go through things and how I work on stuff, and kind of what I expect from his side of the camera. And he's gotten so good at, that poor guy, he's gotten so good at predicting what I'm thinking and kind of just like referring to me, like what should I do? And I can say like, okay, you're here looking there, and he goes, okay, I'm there looking there. I would say that to these other guys, and they would kind of be like what? Like, and I'm like, you're standing here, I'm standing there, your camera is looking this way. And, you know, it's just like the language between me and Paul. We've worked together for so long that it becomes very, very smooth. And it's just not, you know, not as easy with these other guys. So, but just because we haven't worked together much, right? Randy made a music video for my band, I think in 2016 or 2017. So I have worked with Randy before, but very different, you know. The thing that I knew about him is that he has a very, very good eye. He knows how to make stuff look really beautiful, and he's not afraid of work, you know, and that was huge. So, okay, then I kind of am thinking about the videos that I want to make next. And there's one that I'm just like desperate to make, and I'm trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to get it done, just with the time that I have available to me. And some of it is that right now the weather isn't awesome, and it's a motorcycle video. And we're also coming up against not having any more good motorcycle weather, or very, very limited, you know, a single day where it's actually really nice out. And the other part is that my wonderful fiance, her family is coming to town, and there's, I think, 4 days or so where they're in town, and this video requires me to leave for like 3 days probably. So I can't do that when they're here. The weather is bad right now. I thought about doing it today, by the way. Today, tomorrow, and Tuesday, but I just can't really get it. I can't really quite swing it. Because the weather is not great. It's even quite chilly out, so it wouldn't have been a very fun ride, and it's a pretty long ride. I'm trying to go up to Duluth and all the way up the North Shore to Grand Marais, which is one of my favorite drives to do in general, and it's also the fall colors right now. So fall colors are pretty close to peak, and once they start falling off peak, they start to decline. So I want to get up there and experience it, but I don't know how it's going to work. So if I get to, cool. If not, what do you do? You know, I'll have to just think of other things. So I hope I can do that one. And I'm also trying to think of videos that I can kind of successfully get done in a single day for that channel, to see if there's kind of a type of content where that could really work. And it's a little tricky. I think a ride is a good example. Motorcycle ride. You know, hey, here's a great route to take if you're looking for a good motorcycle ride. And that's just because I think that will be fun, and I think that will attract like an interesting audience. And I wonder if there's a way that I can do it that's sort of cinematic enough and compelling enough from a dialogue context that I can make people interested who are not even necessarily interested in motorcycles, by way of having beautiful scenery and like kind of a nice feeling to it. It's very fun to be working on a brand new channel with like completely new content, and have to kind of work through all of these things that I've already basically done for this other channel. I've already figured out so much of that, but being able to like breathe new life into this thing and have kind of, you know, what are these, carte blanche of just like, I can make whatever I want to make here, but like, what do I want to make, and what do I think people want to see? What do I think people want to see that aligns with what I want to make? Because I don't just want to make what people want to see. I want to make what I want to make, but I also want people to want to see the stuff that I want to make. So yeah, like, where does that cross over? And I think actually, if you're watching this and you're, you know, a realtor or a business owner who's trying to make content, like, that should be the question. Where is there an overlap between what I want to make and what people want to see, right? That's it. And if it's purely like educational or helpful content, and you're afraid you're kind of giving away the secret, I would say don't be afraid of that at all. Maybe there are some people who use my videos and work with another realtor, and they go, we've identified areas X, Y, and Z, and they probably aren't telling their agent by using these videos, and they're using another agent, right? So they're getting a sense of the area by using our videos, and they're using somebody else. And like, that's fine, because there's a lot of other people who use the videos to get a greater sense, who then understand that like why we will be so particularly helpful because of our rich understanding of all these places. So Yeah, I don't know, that's just kind of a thing to take with you. Like, don't be afraid to just give stuff away. And that's the beauty of the new channel, is that there is no secret that I'm like, oh, if they know this, they won't work with me, right? It's just this other kind of companion style video that I hope in the long run converts to clients. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, But like the video that I'm thinking about, the road trip up the North Shore video on the motorcycle. An interesting thing that I think is cool about that is that I can try to make this like cinematic road trip video on my main channel. And now on YouTube, you can collaborate with channels. And so I can collaborate with my To the Twin Cities channel on that one, because like I said before on this channel, there's an overlap of people who like To the Twin Cities will likely enjoy the content that I'm making on the other channel, because if you're moving here, you're interested to know more about the Twin Cities and kind of like these cool people doing this cool stuff, right? There's a good chance that, like, let's say 80% of the To the Twin Cities audience will find that other channel at least interesting. And so when there are videos on this other channel that correspond with To the Twin Cities, I think it makes perfect sense to do that collaboration. But there's also going to be a lot of things, how do I say that? It's funny, I did this hand thing before on a previous episode. Basically none of the videos on the To the Twin Cities channel should be collaborated with over to the Jesse Lynch channel, because these folks, my goal is that these folks already live in Minnesota. Or they don't live in Minnesota and they have no intention of living in Minnesota. They just like the content. So if I don't want to muddy the waters with this other channel for the To the Twin Cities channel, because these folks won't care about this stuff. But these folks will care about this stuff. Cool? That makes sense? I thought it made sense. I thought it made very cool sense. So I have a few more things that I'm thinking about. This is not necessarily just about these brands, but these are things that I kind of have written down, and I'm going to talk about them and see if they knock anything loose in my own brain. So the one that I have, these are kind of like reminders for me and reminders for you, right? Other agents. I was originally going to call this kind of series like brutal advice for real estate agents. Nah, I just don't like that anymore. So I changed it. But these are kind of like those general ideas. So your personality, your story, your quirks are the single most important thing to be putting out there. They're the single most interesting thing about you, right? Like your story and your quirks and what makes you different. That's the interesting stuff. Not what makes you cool. Not what makes you like a winner necessarily. Oh, he's so sad. I am shooting this at a weird time of day, so in fairness to him, he's like, what are we doing? Those things, they're important to be putting out there. And so when I think about the new channel, I will say there's a part of me, there's like that I have to fight through, which is trying to make this channel look and feel a certain way that isn't necessarily authentic to me. Trying to lean into being classy in a way that, like, I'm not necessarily actually like classy in a traditional way, right? I think I'm classy enough, but I'm not old money classy, right? And I'm not like, that's just not me. I like cool things, I like refined things, but not stuffy, right? So I have to really just be sure that I'm being authentic in that regard, and that I'm not being stuffy. That there are other people like me who have taste in like really cool shit, right? And they want to experience like these lovely little pockets, or maybe they want to move to the Twin Cities and they want to know like, where is there just like an absolute vibe that I would mesh with. And so trying to make the vibe of the videos like calm and relaxing and peaceful, but still kind of inspiring, and not being afraid of being casual, and knowing that like just because I'm trying to talk to people who are of greater means potentially, right? And that's not even really it, but like people who are interested in the finer things. I keep saying that, but like that's it. People who are interested in the finer things. Just because I'm talking to them doesn't mean that a lot of them didn't come from very humble beginnings. Myself included, I think there are more people like me who started, without having much, right? My family, we were fine, and all credit to my parents for, the amount of comfortability I had. We didn't have any luxury though, really, as it pertains to American life. I understand that that's not the whole picture, but the way I just know that there are more people who grew up like me who've kind of gotten themselves out, who have gotten to be in a position where they're able to afford a home that's just like so much more expensive than, let's say, their parents could afford, right? They're able to afford a lifestyle that was so much more than what they grew up in. I just know that there's a lot of people like that. And a lot of that is because growing up kind of poor, or growing up like, tight, and always like experiencing that, or being around, your family or whatever as they're struggling with money, that does something to you. And so very often when that does something, the reaction is successful, right? The reaction is a person who comes out the other side being quite successful because they witnessed things and they said, I don't want that. And so they did everything they could to not have that. So I have to remind myself that to some degree, that's who I'm talking to. The people who worked their ass off to get to a point where they could buy a luxury home, right? Or a luxury car or something like that. The people who still, they appreciate the craftsman, not just from this old money, like, oh yes, yes, he truly is the best, right? But like, from like, I know people like you, right? I know people who like, I grew up with people like you who dedicated themselves to a particular craft, and they're exceptional at it. And you know how much work actually goes into it, and an appreciation of the work, not just an appreciation of like the raw talent or the cost of something. So trying to, wrap my head around not being insecure about where I came from as it pertains to this channel. I'm sure I'm insecure about where I came from, but in like a psychological sense. but I like now, honestly, now in my life, I actually really appreciate where I came from, and I appreciate the life that I had and the things that I didn't have. It made me who I am, and I'm glad. I like who I am. So I was actually talking with somebody recently about I've never drank, I've never done drugs of any sort, never smoked weed, never smoked cigarettes. I have never done steroids. It's probably obvious, but when I really think about like why I haven't tried so many of those things, a lot of it is just kind of things that happened in my youth that when the time came where my friends started dabbling or whatever, it was just, that's going to be a nah for me, dog kind of situation. But even as I got older and like wiser and kind of like, you kind of start to feel like, well, I think I could probably handle that. You kind of like are a little more confident in yourself and like who you are as a person. As I got a little bit further with that, the reason that I didn't ever dabble there's two reasons. One, it's a possibility that was a runaway train. And the second I hopped on, peace out, I'm a dirtbag. Okay? That's entirely possible. There's also the thing that I was actually more afraid of is that it would just shift who I am just a little bit, 1% of a degree off course from who I would be otherwise. And I liked who I was, and I liked where I was headed. And I thought I can see where I'm going. And if I turn that off course, I might not be able to see where I'm going. And that might be wrong. I'm sure there are people who have dabbled who said, well, actually quite the opposite. I dabbled in some psychedelic or something, and it revealed the road to me. I'm sure there are people out there who would advocate for stuff like that, but I think it changes you. I think there's a possibility that it changes you. Even if it doesn't change everybody, I think there's a possibility it changes you. And I like who I am, and I like knowing who I am, and I like knowing that who I am is just who I am. So I want to be able to take that like level of confidence and be willing to include that in the other channel. While it is this like kind of upper echelon of people, places, and things that I'm trying to like access and show, while it is that, I want to be unafraid of the fact that because my history, my roots, my childhood are not from that makes it any less viable. I believe it makes it more accessible. And what's interesting is I say that right now. I believe it makes it more accessible. I don't know if 2 weeks ago I believed that. I think maybe 2 weeks ago I thought it's got to be this kind of thing, right? It's the beauty of talking through this shit right now with y'all is that I think I just got to explore that part of how I think about this channel. And yeah, and it's okay for me to kind of reveal that to the viewer. Not even okay, it's good. I should be revealing that to the viewer. There is a little bit of something else that's kind of a parallel to that, but I want to kind of explore right now how I think it's different. So when I first started the To the Twin Cities channel, I was pretty broke when I started it. I wasn't pretty broke. I was broke when I started that channel. When I started real estate, I think I'd made $40,000 the year before, and it was also COVID. So I had a very slim year at work, and then COVID happened, and I had an even slimmer beginning of the year. And yeah, I bought real estate classes, etc. I was freaking broke, but I was being very, very authentic in all those videos. I was talking to people like me, which I still think I am. I think who I am has changed a bit. My financial means has changed a bit. So I'm more comfortable talking to people who make more money now. And that's not to say that I'm uncomfortable. It's actually just kind of like opened the world up to me, where before I was really only comfortable talking with people who like didn't make very much money, right? My first 5 transactions, it was all in 1 month in the year 2020, in June 2020. I had 5 transactions. They were less than $200,000 on average. 5 transactions, under $1 million total. That would be really hard to do in Minnesota right now. For one, that prices were more affordable, but not that much more affordable. The median sale price was, I think, around $300,000 in 2020. So I was less than the median. Now the median sale price is $400,000, and our median sale price as a team is higher than that. So there's just a little bit of like, I'm talking to people who were like me then, tend to be talking to people who are like me now. But what's interesting is, like I said, I was talking to people who were more like me then, and that's where I was comfortable. I was comfortable talking to first-time home buyers, and a lot of the stuff that I was making was about the city, because I kind of knew the city the most. I didn't know the suburbs all that well yet, and other than like the one I grew up in. But now, because I talked to all those first-time home buyers for so long, I'm still very comfortable talking to them. And I remember not too long ago being broker than them, right? Like those people I was talking to, by the way, who were buying a $300,000 house, they almost all were in better financial position than I was at the time. But I wasn't trying to pretend like I wasn't. I was just talking to the people that I was comfortable talking with. So I'm still comfortable talking to them. But now as like my financial situation has improved, as I'm now like in I feel like a proper business owner. I have a team, right? Like I'm just like operating at a different level than I was in 2020. If I'm gonna do another hand thing, these were the first time home buyers. It's not that it just shifts, right? And goes to, okay, now I'm talking to these people. It's that it opens up, right? I'm still very comfortable talking to these people, and our team helps those people, the most affordable end of the market, still helping that group of people and that price point. But now we are opening it up more and more, right? So I've become more comfortable talking with sellers who have $1.5 million homes to sell, and a lot of that is just through doing it, right? But some of it is also by my own life shifting, and that's just a thing that you gotta figure out, So why I started talking about that is at the beginning of that channel, I was talking on that channel, and I would refer to more expensive areas, and it'd be funny to go back and watch it. I was very much like, yeah, well, this area is like pretty affordable compared to Edina, right? And I'm like, freaking Edina, you know? And like, what I was doing is I was broadcasting, like, I cannot handle Edina. Edina is more than I'm willing to, like, I'm not comfortable in that price point. And so I'm not comfortable and I'm not competent. And there were maybe a couple exceptions of people who trusted me with more expensive transactions really early on. But yeah, frankly, that's probably just because they liked me, you know? And because I was being authentic. So being authentic did pay off, ultimately. So that there's like the difference between that, saying, kind of signaling to the audience, I can't handle that, right? Being like, you know, $3 million house, being like, oh my God, you know, holy crap. And then being like, this house is $3 million. There's a pretty big difference. Because you also want to be able to, that's another kind of weird thing. Sorry for the tangent. I still want to be able to look at a beautiful house and go, golly, this is beautiful, right? Man, that's a beautiful house. Because I think people actually appreciate that. I think people who can afford a $3 million house appreciate people saying, man, that's a beautiful house. That's half the point, right? You want to get to be able to buy a $3 million house or a $6 million house or $10 million house, whatever. And you want people to be able to say, like, man, that's something else. And I would want, personally, a real estate agent, or if I was buying like a classic car, I'd want the person I'm kind of like working with to be like, ooh, right? Like, God dang, that's great. And maybe not quite that much. That was maybe a little overkill. But I would want them to like appreciate it and be like, ooh, like this is really great. Because, yeah, I think everybody wants that. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think if you're up at that price point, maybe you want somebody who's like, yeah, it's okay. You know, you should see this. I have a $20 million condo in downtown. You should see that. Like, I don't know. Maybe there are people who would prefer that, but that's just not going to be who I am. So I have to be kind of remain being authentic. But yeah, there's a difference between showing an appreciation and an admiration and a reverence for those things, the finer things in life, like, you know, the more expensive homes, yeah, the just like, ooh, that's luxury and it feels luxury and it's, you know, let me tell you why. You know, let me tell you why it's luxury. And there's a difference between that and being like, oh my God, that thing is nice. You know, being like clearly like freaked out by how nice it is. So, yeah, that's kind of the back and forth that I'm having, and I think it's good. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.